All right, hi everyone, welcome back. So before we did a very basic spreadsheet about the business of money you make, money you spend, and what's left over at the end of the day. So now we're going to take our first actual example of a small business, and we're going to create a spreadsheet model, and we're going to see even more Excel functionality. So before we begin, pause the video and just read the question on the screen if you want to type it out as well, but read it first to get a handle of the question. I'm not going to read the question during these videos. I assume you're going to pause it, but you can imagine any word problem, it might take a couple of times through the problem to actually understand what the question's even asking, to realize that there are some subtle givens in there that you might not catch in the first time through. So don't feel bad if you have to read it a couple times. Normally though, whenever we want to make a spreadsheet model, I want to start off with a nice title. So we saw this last time, NCAA T-shirt vendor. And I'm going to apply a nice cell style to it. Let's apply heading 1 and make it all pretty. And I probably will merge and center it in a little bit. I don't know how wide I'm going to be at my spreadsheet, but we'll get there eventually. All right, so assuming you read the problem, here we go. So I want to write down, the first thing I like to do is write down the givens. What is it that I'm being told? And then what is it that I need to figure out? Randy, the t-shirt vendor, he's going to order t-shirts with the name of these teams, and I have some costs associated to those orders. So I'm going to call them manufacturing, and I have a fixed cost. So let's write down our costs here. I clearly have a fixed cost of $750. So we'll type in 750. Remember, I type it in naked and then I go and apply the formatting. I don't want the pennies, so I'll clear the zeros once they appear. And then the question is, there's a variable cost per shirt. So $8. So whatever the number of shirts that I order, I need to put $8. So this is the variable cost. If I order 10 shirts, it's going to cost me $80. If I order 100 shirts, it's going to cost me $800, whatever it's going to cost, but it's variable. And this is at $8. Format that as well. Maybe I'll leave this here because I can imagine the price changing perhaps by a quarter, by 50 cents. So I actually do want to see this. This is small enough, usually numbers under 10 or so. I will show the decimals if it's important, but variable cost of $8. And it's not bad to remind yourself this is for each shirt. It's not for like a batch of 10. So we have variable costs here. Let's make this a little prettier like we did before. Let's bold, let's indent. Maybe we can put borders on in a minute, but I have fixed cost $750 and then a variable cost of $8 for each shirt. About per shirt. That sounds better. So things that I need to know some way, somehow to compute the total cost is the number of shirts ordered. So now I have to figure out the number of shirts ordered. So number of shirts ordered. So once again, I'm going wide on my column. That is totally okay. Let's widen the column a little bit. Notice I put my mouse between A and B. It turns into this sort of left-right cursor, and then I double click to get the auto formatting that I want. We're going to play around with this number a little bit. Maybe I order more, maybe I order less. You can imagine if you were a consultant on this client, you might want to tell the person how many shirts they order. So we have to figure that out. And that's going to come later in the problem as well. We're going to need some more information. Sometimes when I have a variable, things that I could possibly change, I color code it. I use green. You can imagine using anything you want, but green for me is going to be a cell that says kind of play with the cell to affect the outcome. Okay, so keep going. So I have a fixed cost $750, got that. The variable cost is $8, got it. Now Randy's going to sell the price for $18. Now 18, where's that going to go? Where should I put this here? I somehow, some way need to get my total cost going. Something going on here, and I'll compute that in a second. If I keep reading, now I'm getting into my profit. How much am I actually making? Now I have my selling costs. I'm going to try to keep all the givens together. And there's no right or wrong way to do this. Maybe I'll drag this down. By the way, if you haven't seen dragging before, you highlight what you want and you put your mouse sort of on the top or on the bottom of the cell, and then you can move it all around wherever you want. And that's sort of the beauty of Excel, is that when you have a problem, you don't know if you need to go back and add some lines or move some things down. All these things are like magnets. You can move them around wherever you want. Nothing is set in stone. So I'm going to start getting into my revenue here. Selling price. My selling price is $18, but this price will be charged only until a week after the tournament. So then it gets reduced to $6. So it looks like I have a full price and then I have my reduced price. All right, so there's two revenue things that I have to keep track of, and you need to write them both down. Let's indent a little bit. And let's write down my 18 for full price, and my reduced price is 6. Again, this is all per shirt, so I just want to keep track of my units. I can imagine later where they change units on us. Let's format this to the $sign. Let's kill the pennies. or maybe we'll keep the pennies because they're so small. I don't know. We'll leave it for now. But then I have my revenue. And then there's a question here, of course, of how many do I sell at full price? And then how many do I sell at reduced price? This is something that I kind of need to figure out and keep track of. So maybe, let's see, I don't know where that should go. Maybe we'll put it here for now. So let's see, number of shirts sold, say full price. I'll abbreviate this, FP. And then I want number of shirts sold and then reduced price. You can write it out. Maybe you have a better way to say it, but these are things that I need to figure out. What is actually being sold? TBD. Okay. And then once I know these things, then I can compute my total cost. I can compute my total revenue. These are nice. And then last but not least, what's my total profit? Now I'm almost going to work backwards here. One thing I look at when someone brings me a spreadsheet, whether it's working or not, the first thing I go to is not like, did you copy the givens correctly? You can imagine people copy things wrong. Not, do you have the right formulas and the right calculations? I actually go to the profit formula. And a good spreadsheet will have a profit formula that looks something like this. It's going to be the money you make minus the total cost. It should be very, very simple, because all the work should be in how is the cost calculated? How is the revenue calculated? I don't care how complicated your business is. You always want to know where your streams of costs are, what you're spending your money on. That could be a very large spreadsheet, a very simple one. And then, of course, you have your revenue. Where am I making my money? Those should be shown and clearly worked out in other places in the spreadsheet. Do not overcomplicate formulas. They get very difficult to pass off to people. Remember, this is the whole point of this is for readability, to pass this off to a client, to your boss, to a colleague, and they can be able to absorb the spreadsheet and then understand what's happening right away. So for a profit formula, I always want to see your revenue minus your cost. Let's show that formula using our formula text, and there it is. Okay, so we have revenue minus cost. Now, of course, I have no cost and I have no revenue, so that's why it's showing 0. So let's actually go ahead and put something in there. So these are pretty important numbers that I probably want to figure out. All right, so let's figure out, what do I need? So let's put some dummy numbers in. So one thing I do when I have the number of shirts ordered, now do they tell us this? So here we go. The number of shirts ordered and then the number of shirts sold at full price. He's going to order 1450 t-shirts. So it tells us how many he's going to order. And then he's also telling us that he thinks the demand for the t-shirts, full price period, is 1500. So we're getting told these things. So you can imagine playing around with these and seeing what the right number is. But the number of shirts ordered is 1450, and then we have these shirts that are sold. He's thinking about, he wants to build a spreadsheet that lets him experiment with uncertain demand and his order quantity. So these two things sort of need to change. I don't really know how many I should order, and I don't really know the demand. So let's just think about this for a second. I have this line sort of in the way here. Let's clean this up. I don't know if I need this just yet, but I have 1450. So let's imagine this for a second. You have the number of shirts that are sold. This is your demand. You have orders in for 1500 shirts. Now, you order 1450. Again, usually you order them to have them on stock so you can give them to the customer first. Like you don't know how many are coming in. So you take your best guess and you order this many. How many shirts are left over? How many shirts are left over here? Here it would be 0, right? Every single shirt that I order is going to be sold. In fact, I'm going to have, unfortunately, a bunch of unhappy customers, 50 of them, that aren't going to get their shirts. So I really should maybe perhaps order more, like, right, if I ordered more. And maybe you can see where this is going. I need to keep track of, if I happen to order too many, right, I don't know what's better. Do you want angry customers that are going to complain about you on social media, or would you rather sort of overestimate the number that are ordered and just sort of take a loss on the rest of them? I don't know. This is a good question. So let's just play around with this for a second. We can play around with these two numbers. Again, I color code them in green. And then I need to compute somehow the overflow. What's left over, what doesn't get sold on that initial round, and then what just kind of get like $6 for. And that, well, I don't know, take a second, pause the video, and see if you can come up with the formula for this. What is going to be the shirts that are sold at reduced price? Now remember, this problem is assuming that everything gets sold. Everything that I order is going out the door. I have nothing left over in inventory. I either sell it for the full $18 or I just sort of give it away at $6 per shirt. Come up with a formula that actually works for this cell. For me, it's be 14, wherever you are. Pause the video, see if you can do it. Okay, ready? Now you might have said 16 minus 600 minus 1500 and hit enter. And you say, great, it's 100. Well, that's true if the number of shirts ordered is larger than the shirts that are sold. What if we go back to the initial number? What if I order 1450? And remember, how many do I have at the reduced price? I certainly don't have negative 50. And this is where you have to be very careful and clever with your formula. If you just subtract the two, you're going to have a negative number of shirts sold. And of course, that's a little silly. You can't sell negative number of shirts. So somehow, some way, you need to say that the smallest this can ever get is 0. In this particular case, you order 1450, they all get sold at full price, and then you have none left over. And all of a sudden, you realize there's something else going on here. I can't sell 1,500 shirts if I've only ordered 1450. So what you need to do is introduce a new variable. And this is where we can insert a new row and actually call a new variable called the demand. What is actually demanded? And now you realize it's not the number of shirts that are sold at 1,500, it's what's demanded. And all of a sudden, we have to be very careful about this. How many can I actually sell? If I have less than the demand, I'm going to sell 1450, right? If I order 1450, but I have 1,500 orders, 1450 are going out the door. On the other hand, what if this is more? Just imagine this for a second. What if I ordered 1,600 and the demand is still 15? Do I sell 1,600 or do I sell the demand? I sell 1,500. In either case, and this is where you have to be very clever, we have a new function here. It's always the smaller of the two. In Excel, you can pick the smaller of two numbers by using the min function, equals min, and we're going to take the minimum of the shirts ordered and the demand. This is a little bit clever. This is not entirely obvious, and it might take you a minute to think about this. Why is it the minimum of these two? Again, plug in numbers and you should see this working. So if I order 1,600 and I only sell 1,500, then the number of shirts that are sold is actually 1,500. The number of shirts that are left over is 100, and this all seems to be working. Problem is, you have to make a spreadsheet that is malleable, that is adaptable. If I go the other way and I have 1450, now look, my spreadsheet is working. In B14, the number of shirts that are sold are only what I have. I can't sell what I don't have, so I'm taking the minimal. I still have a problem with this negative, and there's a nice little way to do this. When I want something to not be negative, this is a little counterintuitive, I can take the max with 0. Stare at that for a second, pause the video, and just think about what that means. If I take a number and I set a max of 0, it means if I'm negative, 0 will always be larger. It will always put 0. This will never show a negative number. Notice when I do that, now correctly, instead of the negative number that was there, I have no shirts left over. Stare at this for a second. Make sure these formulas make sense. This is a nice thing, a nice little trick, but it's pretty common when you have ordering versus sort of demand. You're always going to sell the minimal of those two numbers, and what's going to be left over is the difference unless it's negative, and in that case you want 0. Here's two little formulas that work out nicely, and notice now when I really start experimenting or playing around with my numbers, everything's working out. I have 1,500 orders, I sell them, and I have left over 150. Now I can figure out my total cost and my revenue. Ready? Here we go. So remember, total cost, there's a fixed cost. Just putting the order in is going to cost me $750, and then it's $8 per shirt. Now be careful, is it the shirts that I order, the demand, or the number of shirts sold? Hopefully you see this, it's per order, right? If I order it, it's $8 a shirt. Plug that all in. Again, it's grabbing the formatting. Let's kill the pennies. Let's show the formula here. So there's where that's coming from. Just be careful. I have a couple things to choose from. Again, it's the number of shirts that are ordered. Again, it's the number of shirts that I ordered. And then last but not least, my revenue that I make. Now be careful. This is the number of shirts that I sold. There's two ways to make money here. You can sell the full price shirts, and this would be at my full price of $18. And then I have my reduced price at $6. And I have some revenue here, and I will also format everything correctly. We'll make this there. And so now I have my total profit. So in this scenario here, it's not the end of the world. So to play around with this, and I have 1,650 shirts, 1,650 shirts ordered, I'm still going to make a nice profit. And you can play around with this and plug in different numbers. If I did 1,450, the client may come back and say, is it okay to order more? Well, at 1,600, we're making almost 14,000. If you order less, you're actually making about the same. So it's very small, and you can imagine collecting a bunch of numbers and perhaps graphing those. In another video, I'll show you how to do that a little bit more effectively than sort of just writing everything down. But for now, this is a very nice spreadsheet that you can pass off to the client. They say, well, what if demand increases? It's popular with two teams. What if demand decreases? And if you notice, everything updates automatically. We don't have any negative numbers. Very clever use of min and max. Total cost, total revenue. Let's show the formula. And again, total profit, so we can be informed in our decision and make good recommendations to our client. Okay, play around with the spreadsheet, make sure you get it to work, understand the min and the max, the functions and their uses, as well as these other formulas about where revenue, cost, and profit come from. All right, great job on this video. We'll see you next time.